My name's Jen Pollack. I am the Senior Associate Director for Federal Affairs for the Alzheimer's Association. I've been with the association for a little over 4 years now. And prior to my time with the association, I was a Hill staffer for somebody who was on appropriations and another member of Congress who was on Ways and Means. So I'm a House staffer. Just have a lot of interesting perspective from that side. And then I also worked for a provider organization as well. So I've been in the health field for over a decade at this point. But again, been with the association for a little over 4 years. So just a little bit about us. We are the leading voluntary health organization on Alzheimer's research, care, and support. We have a large public policy team that focuses not only on congressional work, but also regulatory work with the administration and then state affairs. And so we have public policy staffers in all 50 states who work to move legislation through the legislatures there as well. Now, again, I'm a congressional, I focus on the congressional side, so I'm going to really focus my comments on what we have found with our advocacy program on the federal side. And please feel free if you have questions while I'm talking, sometimes I can get really wonky into what I'm saying. So please feel free to interrupt. You can raise your hand. You can just unmute, whatever works on your end. So as I said, our team, we cover a large space in the advocacy world, but we couldn't do anything that we do without our advocates. We've been developing our advocacy program for the last about 12 years or so. And we have a both grassroots and grass tops program. So we have our Alzheimer's ambassadors who are similar to you all, who are the points of contact for our members of Congress. And our ambassadors really lead our Alzheimer's congressional teams. And these teams, work to keep the members of Congress and their staff engaged in our priorities, and especially as our priorities start to move through both the House and the Senate. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about sort of what we're focusing on this year for these priorities, and then that'll give you context to sort of my explanation for moving forward. But every year we have our appropriations requests, and I noticed on your website, you all do too. I think pretty much everyone that lobbies Congress will go in on appropriations. The way we do things is we kind of divide out our appropriations and our legislative asks because they come about a bit differently. So every year we ask for funding for the NIH program on Alzheimer's and other dementia, and really looking at the research activities there. We have a couple other appropriations asks that we focus on. One is a public health ask because we had done a public health bill a couple of years ago. But then we move into our legislative priorities. And these bills range from this year, we're looking at a dementia care management model. So how we pay for dementia. And actually a lot of it came from research we did on ESRD and that whole program. And so, we focus sort of on the care side, and then we also have a research side that we're looking at too, which has to do with diversity in clinical trials. So those are sort of our top two legislative priorities at the moment. Now, Ben and I, we're both, effective lobbyists. We could do, we can talk till we're blue in the face to legislators and to their staff, but without you guys and without your specific stories and your contacts with those folks, we wouldn't get very much done. Don't tell our bosses that, but that's really how it is. We really do rely so much on our advocates. And advocacy is, over the last 4 or 5 years, has just changed so much. So part of it is that lobbying budgets have increased a lot. Part of it is a new change that we see in Congress on social media being such a huge focus in Congress. With this most recent congressional class that came in at the beginning of this year, we saw so many of the new folks that were hiring like communication staff before they were hiring their legislative staff. And so really learning to use social media to reach the members of Congress is really, really important. The other thing that we've heard is that while lobbying has changed, what hasn't changed is the importance of meeting constituents. Constituents continue to be a priority for members of Congress. And we used to see with our advocates, we would hear people sort of being discouraged if at our in-person meetings pre-COVID, obviously, that they were in the house and they got moved to a hallway and they had this quick meeting in a hallway with the staffer. And we'd have people that were, really discouraged because they came all the way out here and they wanted to talk. And, that was certainly something hard to deal with. But now with this change to COVID, we're seeing this whole Zoom atmosphere and Zoom disappointment sometimes of, staffers not being on camera or members of Congress just popping in real quick. And what we really try and tell our advocates is that you all are still so important and they really are listening. Even if people aren't on camera or they step away for a minute, from the camera, they're still listening. And these meetings are still really important because when your boss comes to you at the end of the day and says, hey, what should be on my radar, they're going to say, hey, I heard this really impactful story from Ben over at the American Kidney Fund, and he was telling me about this, and here's, a bill that I want you to look at. And they're going to remember those stories, even if, they're kind of doing 30 things at once, because that's the nature of being a Hill staffer, is doing 30 things at once. But the other thing, that I think, and I'm sure you all do very well, but one of the things that we like to focus on is getting people to sort of identify why you're an advocate. And that's a question that we ask at the start of all of our trainings is why you're an advocate. Can you put together a story in 2 minutes that tells me why you're an advocate? And, we also sometimes ask people to boil it down to what we call the elevator speech, because if you've got a 15-minute meeting with your member of Congress, you may not have 2 to 3 minutes to talk about your story. You may only have 45 seconds to a minute. So we need to highlight the key elements of what is going to draw the person into your story and have them remember you as you move forward. I can tell you that as a Hill staffer, I still have some folks from patient advocacy groups that I remember, and I remember their stories to this day, even though it's been, 7-8 years since I was on the Hill. And so it's, the stories are just so important. Talk about your personal side to the story. So are you, if you are the one who is dealing with kidney disease and you're comfortable sharing a lot of your story, explain how it's impacted your life. If you're a caregiver and your loved one is impacted by kidney disease, explain why it's impacting your life in that way. One of the things that we always talk about is with these stories, you don't want to make them too sort of summarizing. You really want to include the specific details about you. Those are the things that people remember. And that's, when you see members of Congress who go down to do floor speeches during Kidney Action Week, that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember my constituent from Florida who, was telling me about his time at the dialysis center. And so you want to make sure that you are telling enough about your specifics in your story and sharing your struggle. For a lot of our advocates, Alzheimer's is a very emotional topic for folks. And so we do see people that do get emotional in a meeting, and that's okay, because that's your story and that's part of what makes your story so impactful. Now, one of the things that we see a lot is people get in the meeting and then they kind of get in like a deer in headlights thing. And that happens. It happens to everybody. But one of the things that we like to ask our congressional teams to do is to really prep before the meeting. Figure out, okay, we're going to talk about this bill and we're going to talk about this research funding. So we're going to have, and I'm just going to call on random people here, we're going to have James talk about, this bill and his story and sort of connect it there. And then we're going to have Elizabeth go ahead and talk about the appropriation side. So you're all planned out in your meeting. Now, another thing that we do is every year ahead of our advocacy forum, we have what we call our opening line. And so a few years ago when we were working on this public health bill, our opening line was, Alzheimer's is a public health crisis that affects everyone, and we're here to tell you how Congress can help. Now, what we love about our opening lines is that it makes it so people can remember what they're supposed to say. They start their line and they say, we're here to tell you how Congress can help. Let me tell you my personal story. Let me tell you my elevator speech. What I do with my elevator speech, so my connection to Alzheimer's has to do with both of my grandmothers. And so I have sort of a 30-second blurb that I can talk right off the bat with why Alzheimer's is so important, and why Congress should be thinking about it. And then also, how it's impacted my life personally. So by doing this opening line, it's really getting people to sort of draw in, and it's helping you as an advocate to sort of stay focused with what your mission is here. Now, I also would like you all to think about what your elevator speeches are, because I think part of this interactive program, and we do this on our ambassador calls too, is we ask people to share their elevator speech and to share their boiled down, this is why I'm here. So if anybody feels comfortable in a little bit to share, I would love to hear your elevator story. After the opening line, we really want you to sort of connect with the member of Congress. So do your research. Has the member of Congress spoken out about kidney disease before? Have they spoken out about a personal connection? Do you know of a personal connection? And you can use that in certain ways. We've got members of Congress who are incredibly passionate about Alzheimer's because they've been impacted directly by their parents or their in-laws. And so we can say, Congressman Smith, I know that this is such an important issue to you because your father, lived with Alzheimer's and, you've gone through the whole disease. And so it's just one additional way to be able to connect with folks. The next thing that, you really want to do is sort of, like we talked about, kind of hook them in with your story and really make sure that you're giving enough details of your story, like I said before, so that people really feel that that they understand where you're coming from and that they feel in your shoes. We also, want you to be really focused on your ask. So for our ambassadors, we have different materials, and it kind of changes depending on if we're in a virtual forum or in person, but we have different papers and materials that will talk through what your ask is. Typically, our ask is please co-sponsor the insert your bill here, which would insert what your bill does here. And that really helps people to focus on what the ask is. We also like to send our materials ahead of time to the staffer. This is a great way for them to be fully prepped for your meeting. So you don't have to spend all the time going into the super details of what your legislation does. You can say, I'm here to ask Congressman Smith to please co-sponsor the Chronic Kidney Disease Improvement in Research and Treatment Act, which would increase awareness of kidney disease and expand preventive services by including kidney screening and annual Medicare wellness benefits. And this way you've kind of looped people in, and then they can say, hey, you know what, I actually did have a question about that. And you can have sort of more of a productive discussion than necessarily going through every single piece of what's in all the bills. So we really, we like to send our materials ahead of time so that people staffers in particular who are really busy will know what you're coming in to talk about. A lot of them will then have prepped already and maybe even gotten clearance to sign on. So then your meeting is more of a thank you meeting because they've now already signed on to your bill. The, you know, and that kind of goes into my last point, which the thing that we, I think, are known most for on Capitol Hill, other than turning the halls of Congress purple during our advocacy days, is that we are really well known for thanking members of Congress. And there are so many ways to do that. You know, we used to encourage personal handwritten notes. In COVID right now, that's kind of hard because you're not going into buildings, and mail takes, 3 to 4 weeks to get there anyway. So that's, not as much of what we do these days. But an email saying, thank you so much for meeting with me. I really enjoyed, this part of our conversation. We'd really, really love to have Congressman Smith as a co-sponsor on these bills. And that's another way to reiterate your ask, but still thank them for their time. Hill staffers, as I'm sure that Ben and the rest of his team have explained to you, are, as somebody put it to me, drinking from a fire hose. So they're so overwhelmed, and just doing that extra step of thank you is enormously helpful. The other thing that we do, like I said before, is we utilize social media all the time. We will, I don't think that there's a way to overthank somebody on social media. So whether that's taking one of those awkward Zoom pictures where everybody says 1, 2, 3, like cheese, and then somebody takes a screenshot and you post that on social media with a thank you tagging your member. You can also tag them and say, thank you so much, Congressman Smith, for meeting with me about the insert your bill name here. And that's, again, just another way to reiterate what your ask is, but also in the form of a thank you. We also will do, if you meet with the staffer and then say you do, we do what's called Coffees with Congress. So we usually do it in August. This year it's been a little different with the Hill schedule. But we also, will bring up the meeting you had before. So Congressman Smith, I know I didn't get to meet with you back in March, but I did meet with your staffer, Ben, and he was wonderful. Thank you so much. And, would love you to co-sponsor this. So it's always kind of circling back is a lot of what we focus on. That's sort of my pitch to all of our new ambassadors and sort of how we run our advocacy program. But a lot of it really depends on, and our whole program is built on people's stories. And a lot of our priority legislation is built on what our constituents need. What are people asking for? What are the needs that are not being met? So like a few years ago, actually, I believe it was actually only the beginning of last year, feels like years ago, we had a bill that really focused on individuals with younger onset Alzheimer's disease. So those are folks that are under 65. And it was something that we had heard from so many of our families that these folks were not receiving some of the services that people that were older than 60 were receiving. And so how could we make this better? And so, listening, not only did members of Congress listen to your stories, but we as staff at your advocacy organizations listen to your stories. And that really helps to drive some of our priorities and what we're looking to move in Congress as well. So I've now talked for approximately 21 minutes, but I do want to give anybody a chance to ask questions, or I'd love to hear any elevator pitches if anybody is interested in doing that. I know it's kind of putting people on the spot, but I'd love to hear, the issues that are important to you all right now. And I've perused the website pretty thoroughly for what you all have been working on and the great strides you all are making. But I would love to hear any questions you have, comments, thoughts, elevator pitches.
Well, Jen, I'll ask, how does your organization handle in district meetings? Because we do a lot of the in-district phone calls now, but we do those so that the staff in the local offices, one, so that they can learn about the American Kidney Fund and our issues, and also because it just makes it a lot easier for people to be connected with their office locally. Because when we end these calls, we always say if there's any healthcare roundtable, or teletown halls, or anything, we're always glad to connect you. And routinely, they'll say yes, we actually have stuff, and we'd love to be connected. But so, how does your organization handle the in-district stuff?
So that's a great question. So most of our advocates' work is with the district staff.
Okay.
We have found during COVID that a lot of folks are getting kicked to the Hill staff just because everything's virtual and it's, a healthcare ask. So we'll see them getting kicked there. But in pre-COVID times and hopefully post-COVID times, we do have our advocates develop strong relationships with the district office. And part of that is for the reason exactly that you said, but also, the association itself is, we have a 24-hour helpline that's free for anybody. And so we want to make sure that the district staff know that we can be a resource for them. And that we can help them if they have constituents that are calling in and they don't know what to do. But we do, we spend a lot of time with our advocates, and they cultivate the relationships with the district staff, and they usually in normal times see the Congress people for the most part in the district. It's when they come out to DC for our advocacy forum, which we typically do in the spring, that they will meet with the health LAs on the Hill.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or want to work on their elevator pitch really quick? I won't force anybody, but I see lots of names here on the attendance list that have plenty of experience practicing their story with the meetings. Okay, so don't have any volunteers, Jen, so I will let you off the hook, and thank you for taking time to share your insight with us, because it's great to have somebody from another organization let us know how they do things, because sometimes we're so absorbed in the kidney world that we don't always have an opportunity to hear from different folks. So thanks a lot for your time today, Jen.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks. And then now we will hand it over to Carlos.
Good to go.
Good.
Ben, thank you very much for giving me a little bit of time here to chat with all of you, and thank you guys for joining the call. I just wanted to provide a little bit of information about our upcoming Kidney Action Week. So Kidney Action Week this year is growing out of what we did last year. Last year, we had a couple of you guys actually participate. Jim Myers, as an example, who gave a quick blurb last year that allowed us to be able to kind of talk about the patient experience in the middle of Kidney Action Week. As an FYI, we started Kidney Action Week last year because it was an opportunity for us to be able to reach a lot more people, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and how it had really thwarted a lot of our efforts to be able to do community-based outreach in the communities that needed the most. Coming off of the success of that, and just to give you a brief idea, as compared to our Kidney Action Days where we would actually go into cities, where we were reaching anywhere from 300 to 500 people. Last year's Kidney Action Week had about 2,100 people who actually attended throughout the week, which really allowed us again to be able to kind of grow the amount of outreach and information that we could provide to you, to your loved ones, and to just general members of the public who are not aware about kidney disease. So based off of the success of last year and some of the initiatives that we have this year for the American Kidney Fund, we decided to go ahead and continue with what we hope in many ways becomes an annual event. One of the things that was really great about doing a virtual conference or doing this in this format is the fact that people can join from anywhere. It's actually one of the taglines that we're utilizing. I shouldn't say taglines, but it is one of the things that we're saying is that anybody can join from the comfort of their own home, utilizing a phone, a laptop, and be able to kind of participate in the sessions. I'll give you a little bit of a background for this year. We're having 14 sessions spread out over 5 days. They'll start September 13th and go all the way through the 17th. And we're going to be talking about a variety of subjects that are related to kidney disease. We're bringing together top nephrologists, we're bringing together dietitians, patients, caregivers. Some of the patients that we have on this call today, like Crystal, will actually be participating this year in a session. We will be talking about everything from prevention all the way through dialysis, through transplantation, kidney disease management, nutrition, and a bunch of other kidney health related topics. And we hope that you guys are able to join us. Again, you can join from everywhere. You just have to go to kidneyactionweek.org and go ahead and register. We ask that you please provide it to your networks and that you spread it out amongst other people. I will tell you that in the first 4 days that we opened up registration this year, we had over 1,000 people go ahead and register. So we're really looking forward to having many more people who are able to take this information, take it back to their families, and take it back to their communities. As everybody I think on this call is well aware, 1 in 7 Americans in this country suffers from kidney disease, but most people don't know they have it. And the Kidney Action Week presents a great opportunity for people to become more familiar with the various complexities and the nuances of kidney disease, and to be able to learn more so that they can support their own kidney health as well as yours and other people in the community. It's kind of a way too long elevator speech coming off of the last conversation, but I am open to any questions or anything else that I can add. Teresa, I know, is on this call too. I just saw her and I know that she's participating this year. Trying to see if there's anybody else. That's it for this year, but I will say that next year we hope to continue to grow it, and we'll definitely be reaching out to Ben and to all of you to continue to have some participation, because one of the things that we really want to do is continue to grow this and continue to make sure that we are providing the patient voice to the community so that people can share their stories and share the work that they're doing as ambassadors in advocacy for everybody's kidney health. Any questions?
Hi, Carlos, can you give everyone the website again so they can sign up to find some more info?
Sure, I am going to go ahead and put it into the chat, but it's kidneyactionweek.org. One of the things that's great about Kidney Action Week this year is that we will be able to simulcast it on our social media platforms, but of course we'd love for you guys all to join. If you join through the portal, you get updates on what's happening on every single day, what are the sessions that are occurring, you'll get some reminders, and it allows you to participate in the Q&A sessions that we're going to have as a part of Kidney Action Week directly through the portal.
Well, thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
All right, so I will end the recorded part of our presentation now, but I'll hope everyone will stay on so we can have our Q&A time afterwards. So thanks again to Jen and Carlos for your presentations today.